Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this informational webinar about the Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness and its most recent grant cycle. So our fourth grant cycle. We're thrilled to be kicking this off here and thrilled to have you all join us for this conversation and get any of your questions answered about the Community Fund and about the application process. Just to get us started, I'm going to actually pass it over to Joe Pyle, who is the Scattergood Foundation president, and he's going to talk a little bit about the Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness and sort of why we have invested in this process for the past 4 years. And then we'll get into the session. So Joe, I'm going to throw it over to you.
Thanks, Caitlin. And I just want to thank everyone for being on this call and for any previous involvement that you or your organizations may have had in the Community Fund. This is an exciting time for us. As Caitlin said, we're about ready to launch the fourth round of the fund. And I know Caitlin will give some more of the details on the fund. But what's exciting has really been since its inception a little over 4 years ago, the progress that we've made on fundraising. So we now, in the first 3 cycles, the granting group has given away over $1 million to community organizations. So that's really exciting. It probably makes the fund the largest participatory fund in the region. I would think. Caitlin might correct me on that, but so that's exciting, and we're on pace to do over $375,000 this year in the cycle that's up and coming. So that's very exciting. And we've now had long-standing partnerships with the Patricia Kind Foundation, with DBH IDS, which has participated the last couple of years, as well as part of Dowdy's sunsetting, they made a multi-year grant to the fund as well. So we've got funding from a number of organizations that's multi-year, and we're excited to see the fund continue. Separate from the dollars, which are critical to the organizations like yours on the call here, what I'm most excited about is what the Community Fund has taught us as a foundation. That there's a lot of conversation about community voice, as well as trust-based philanthropy, and I think that what we've learned is that the grant making that the Community Fund has done is significantly more powerful than if we had done this work on our own. That if we had put together a small grant making committee of people that may have looked and sound more like myself, than really looking to hear the voice of the community. So that's been a powerful piece. It's informed our grant making, because probably not to the level that this program has done, but a lot of our grant making now is informed by this process. So we don't have totally participatory grant making in our portfolio, but we're leaning more and more that direction. So we appreciate the influence that this is having on us. And I think it's probably the best example of where we really work to listen to community voice and trust that the granting group knows the community far better than I would. And potentially our staff. So I'm going to sit in, listen in, and hear where this conversation goes. Caitlin's, done an incredible job leading this the last couple years, and I just want to thank you all for your continued interest and support, and also just for the powerful work you're all doing in the community. When I know that the dollars that philanthropy is putting into your work is far less than the need that you all are facing with your community. So thank you all for what you're doing. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Joe. All right, everybody. So I am going to go ahead and just share my screen. I have a PowerPoint to just run through to kind of give you all some details about the community fund and the application process. And please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and I will try to run through questions at the end of the presentation. And there might be a couple of spots that I pause and see if there are any questions in between. So just to give you a little rundown of the next about an hour, we will give a little background and overview of the community fund. I see many familiar faces here, so I'm sure many of you are quite familiar with the community fund. I'll talk a little bit about our, what is sort of new about our fourth cycle of grant making and the selection criteria, and then get into how to apply and then answer any questions, and then we'll close out. I also just want to note at the top that please, if you have any questions beyond this webinar, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always happy to have a conversation with potential grantees, applicants, and would love to hear more about your work and your program ahead of sort of receiving your application. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I am happy to hop on a phone call or a Zoom call or meet downtown for coffee if you would prefer that as well. So yeah. All right, so just a little background and overview. So as Joe mentioned, this program really, the core of it is, or the foundation on which the community fund was built was really around participatory grant making. And I show this particular slide because I think it really kind of encapsulates the sort of all the different ways that grant makers are sort of working with the communities that they are funding in order to get money out the door. In the more traditional grant making world is really sort of in this orange box here, informing where the grant makers tell and the non-grant makers receive. And we're really trying with the community fund and with other work at the foundation to move us much more toward sort of a co-process where we are deciding together, and that there's two-way communication that leads to joint decision making, both pre-grant, during the granting process, and post-grant, so that at all levels of the grant making process, we have community voice and the voice of the nonprofits that we are funding as a part of the process. So what does this really look like in practice? So the foundation, the Scattergood Foundation, along with the Patricia Kind Family Foundation, the Dowdy Foundation, and the City of Philadelphia Department of Behavioral Health and Intellectual Disability Services, have all put money into a pooled fund. This year we have $375,000 that we're going to be able to grant out. And we work to think about what the strategy is for that fund. We work with a community advisory board that all is representative of immigrant serving community-based organizations in Philadelphia. They then nominate a decision-making body that are community members who have lived immigrant experience and can really speak to the needs of immigrant communities throughout Greater Philadelphia. And they review applications and actually distribute grant dollars. So these go into the grantee programs. And then our goal has always been to build a community practice of these folks who can build relationships and collaboration among community-based immigrant serving organizations, develop collaborative projects, and gain access to capacity building opportunities. So this past cycle, I think, has been sort of the most robust community of practice, where we're offering some collective capacity building opportunities around program planning and evaluation, trauma-informed practice, and racial literacy. And we're looking to build upon that progress that we made with this community practice in our next cycle. So really excited about the work that's happening there, and hoping to continue to build there. So our overarching goals for the fund is one, and perhaps most importantly, is to invest in programs that remove barriers and provide opportunities to individuals, especially in vulnerable communities, to live with dignity and joy. The second is really to build organizational capacity among immigrant serving organizations, and particularly grassroots organizations. The third goal is to create space for engagement and collaboration through a peer learning network of community-based organizations that serve immigrants and refugees. So really that community practice that I mentioned. And centering grantee and community voices through a participatory grant making process. So really that fourth goal being the foundation on which the community fund was built. So as I mentioned, our funders this cycle are the Scattergood Foundation, DBH IDS, the Dowdy Foundation, and the Patricia Kind Family Foundation. And we are extremely thankful for their continued commitment. All of these funders have been a part of this process for at least the last 2 years. So, we have some funders who are really committed, and at least 3 of us are committed for at least another cycle. So, we're really happy to have continued investment from these folks. So thank you all so much. Our hope is to continue to grow the fund before we are giving out grant dollars so that we can have even more funds to distribute, and are continuing to work on that with other funders. So our community advisory board that I mentioned earlier, so the group of folks that is really setting the strategy. Hold on one second, my apologies. Setting the strategy for how these grant dollars will be spent. They're the ones who are really developing this request for proposals. Are a group of pretty incredible organizations that have been doing work around sort of touching many different areas of health and well-being with immigrant and refugee communities throughout Greater Philadelphia. So this group of organizations has been incredibly committed and has worked with us for the last, over 4 years to be setting the strategy. So we're incredibly grateful to the thoughtfulness and expertise that they have brought to this work. So one of the things that we have done with this group is really work to develop our own definition of behavioral health. And I think one of the main conversations that we've had with this group is really around creating a broad definition around behavioral health and not wanting to focus on investing in programs that are treatment focused, but really programs that are more on the health promotion and prevention side, and thinking about all of the different factors that go into one sort of being able to have mental health. So, I would encourage everyone, this is posted on our website, encourage everyone to spend some time thinking about this definition as they're working through their applications, and really thinking about sort of what are the more community approaches to behavioral health work, and not sort of solely focusing on the traditional clinical model that is kind of so often upheld, but really thinking about more community approaches that can ultimately, go to the next slide here, help your programs meet these goals here. So the first is, and these are really the goals that, again, sort of set the foundation for the community fund, that the programs we're investing in promote healing and resilience, that they cultivate meaningful connections and build social networks, that they foster a sense of dignity and self-agency among participants, and that they center cultural approaches to emotional health. And then through all of this, we hope that we're able to build collaboration and capacity within immigrant serving organizations. So before I move on to this particular cycle of grant making and what this request for proposals looks like and what the process looks like, just want to check in and see if there are any particular questions from the group. I'll stop the screen share. All right, well, I'm going to move on then. Okay. So for our fourth cycle of grant making, we are in the past, we have had some tiers of grants. And in this cycle, we are really opening it up so that all organizations can apply for up to $50,000 in funding. And, we encourage you to right size the amount of funding that you're requesting to your request, and that the funds go to programs that, sort of an organization's programs that promote healing and resilience in immigrant communities, build spaces to cultivate meaningful connections, foster a sense of dignity and self-agency, and again, central cultural practices for participants. The Community Fund really aims to support organizations that use emergent, community-driven approaches for promoting emotional health and well-being. So not only relying on more traditional models, but really thinking about practices that maybe haven't yet been used, that you're thinking about testing, that can this funding can really help to sort of prove the efficacy of a program's and its impact on emotional health and well-being. So in order to be eligible for a community fund grant, your organization has to either have 501c3 status as designated by the IRS or have a fiscal sponsor. The geographic location so the organization has to be based in the greater Philadelphia region in one of the 5 counties, including Bucks County, Chester County, Delaware County, Montgomery County, and Philadelphia County. I know that there are some statewide organizations that have had some questions about, sort of how the funding can be used if you're a statewide organization. I'm happy to talk through any of that. And we recognize that, individuals might come from outside of the greater Philadelphia region to access services. We can't account for that, and we're not going to ask the grantees to sort of say, like, every individual you serve to make sure that they are located, that they live in one of these counties, but really that the activities take place in one of these 5 counties. So just moving on to the budget size. So we are only taking applications from organizations that have an annual budget of $10 million or less. And just to sort of clarify too on that, if the grant application, if there's a larger institution that has a program that sort of specifically serves immigrants and refugees, the sort of where we're looking for the budget size is at that larger institutional level. So say if there's like CHOP has a specific program, we're not going, we think of that as CHOP, not sort of the specific program. So really, this is a part of, really trying to make sure that we're giving to organizations that are community-based and more grassroots on the ground and having, true connection to community. Next is that the core of the organization's mission is to serve immigrants and refugees. And, this comes out of a kind of constant conversation about whether the fund is really, the role of it is to build the capacity of immigrant serving organizations to meet the mental health and emotional health needs of the communities that they work with, or is it to work with behavioral health agencies and behavioral health organizations to meet the needs of immigrants and refugees? And not to discount that the importance of the latter, but that the former, our community advisory board has really seen that the impact of supporting organizations that are specifically immigrant serving to meet the emotional health and wellness needs of their communities, and really prioritizing the cultural awareness of organizations, many of those who are on the call now, to really, that the relationships and culture are so important to that kind of work, so that we really need to be supporting organizations that really the core of their mission is to serve immigrants and refugees. And then finally, we will be asking about the leadership of your organization and if it is representative of the communities that you serve. So there are two applications, and I'm also happy to talk through any questions on this. But there is an application for new applicants, and I recognize that the language here might be a little confusing because some folks maybe are not current grantees, like they did not receive funding in the third cycle of grant making, but they are not necessarily new applicants. I've applied in the past or they've received funding in the past. But this really is for all applicants who are not the 12 organizations that received funding last cycle. Again, happy to talk through what that looks like for anyone on the call here, but just want to sort of differentiate that there are two applications. This is for all of the organizations out there that are not currently funded by the fund. So we have kind of four main sections of the application. First, we'll be asking about the community that you serve and how your organization works to build community trust and power. And I would say that applications that have been really successful in the past get very sort of specific in this question and say, like, this is specifically how we do it and specifically our approach, and give some examples of how they've built trust and community power. And then in the second section, this is really the bulk of the grant request. So how much you're requesting, again, up to $50,000. A description of the organization. So this is moving a little beyond sort of the more programmatic description that we had in the third cycle, and really kind of thinking about your organization more holistically and thinking about sort of all the different ways in which your organization touches emotional health and well-being. And then thinking too about how all those programs, the programming really aligns with the community fund mission, and really hitting on those four core goals. So promoting health, healing and resilience, cultivating spaces for meaningful connections, fostering the sense of dignity and self-agency, and centering cultural practices. Then we'll ask for a specific funding request and budget. What will you be using these up to $50,000 for? And a budget, we don't have you're welcome to use whatever template you prefer for your budget, but we will ask you to upload it. And then we are also asking this year about staff wellness and leadership and how your organization really approaches staff wellness, and recognizing that the staff of many nonprofit organizations, especially at this juncture, almost 3 years into the COVID-19 pandemic, has really it's really taken a toll on the staff at your organizations, and sort of thinking about how you all are protecting the health and well-being of your staff, in addition to the communities that you're working with. Then we will be asking for just 3 outcomes of interest. So what are some things that you would be looking for or looking to happen as a result of your program? Who are some organizations that you partner with? And then what you would need in the future to make sure that your program can be sustainable. Then we'll also be asking a little bit of, trying to draw in some information for our community of practice and just trying to understand what capacity building needs we would have. And this really helps us to design the community of practice. So, I would be as specific as possible. Like, what do you feel like your organization really needs in order to succeed? And then finally, just any additional information that you'd like to add. And you can add that in any form. If you'd like to, make a YouTube video that talks about your program, I'm sure that would be an excellent way to sort of sell your program to the decision-making group and really, make your program come alive. You're not required to put anything here, but I just also want to note that there are many different forms that you can use for this question. You're welcome to use a video or audio, or continue to write something out. You're also welcome to sort of upload some photos as well. So I mentioned that there were 2 applications. So for the current grantee application, so this would be for the 12 organizations that are funded currently, we are asking more about a program update and sort of where you are in your current programming, what you're learning, especially towards those 4 goals for the community fund, what you're thinking about using the funding for moving forward, and outlining a budget for that. how you're thinking about supporting staff wellness and leadership, and what you would need for future support, in addition to sort of other capacity building needs and additional information. So just to differentiate one last time, new applicants, it's sort of a broader application, and current grantees, it's more of a program update. And if we have sort of other questions related to the broader piece that we've been asking in the new applicants page, we'll refer back to the last application, and we can also, come to you specifically with any questions. But really wanting to make sure that there's an opportunity for current grantees to have kind of continuous funding if they, are making progress towards their goals. So for the timeline of all of this, the RFPs launched on October 19th. We are having this informational session today on the 7th. The application process will be open for about another month until December 9th. And the RFPs will close, and then we will send all of the applications over to the decision-making group to do their individual review. And then they will do their sort of group review in January, where they talk through the merits of each application and really come to final decisions about who will receive grants. And then in February, grantees will be notified and checks will be sent out, and then we'll have a start date for grant programs in March of 2023, and the grants will run for a year. So, well, let me pause here again and just see if there are any questions. I think there was a question in the chat about for-profit organizations applying using a fiscal sponsor, and we fund nonprofit organizations using a fiscal sponsor. So just to clarify there. I'm going to move us forward, talk a little bit about the selection process. So as I mentioned, we have a decision-making group that will be reviewing applications and making grant decisions. We will look to see if that all of our applications meet our eligibility requirements, and that will be done more on the staff side, just to kind of check those boxes and make sure that the application is kind of set to go. And then the decision-making group will be reviewing the applications for, a sense of whether or not the application is, serving a community that the community fund intends to serve, that the organization is, working to build community trust and power. They'll review the organizational approach and, really think about the alignment with the mission of the community fund for immigrant wellness. They'll also review their funding request and budget and just see that it sort of matches what the organization says they're going to do with the dollars. Does it feel like the budget is right-sized for what they want to do? And, so they have the appropriate staff to carry out the activities. And I think I have gotten this question in my email about whether or not funding can go towards staff time. It absolutely can. We recognize that there are no programs without people, so that these dollars can absolutely go towards supporting the salaries of your staff members. And we'll also be reviewing the applications for their potential for impact, thinking too about their approach for staff wellness and leadership, and what can be the greater contribution to the field, and sort of the greater learning about how to work with immigrants and refugees around their health and well-being. And then I just want to note for current grantees, we'll be reviewing all these grant applications together, and for current grantees, the application process the selection process will kind of look more at it from a learning lens, like what have you been learning through the process, and sort of how does your approach for the upcoming year reflect some of that learning and growth. All right, so with that, I am going to pause again, and I will take you all through the Foundant grant portal, which is where the application lives and where you will complete the application. But I just want to pause and see if there are any specific questions.
I would just like to say thank you for allowing this money to go towards salary support and recognizing that there are no programs without people. In my time so far in looking for grants, there's so many restrictions around that that it has made our operational budget very, very difficult to fund. So I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you for noting that. All right, I'm going to move us on. And if there are any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat too. Okay, so the easiest way to find the application, I would say, is to start by going to our website at scattergoodfoundation.org and click on support. So this is where all of our grant making information lives. And you'll see here the Community Fund for Wellness. So we'll click on Community Fund for Wellness. And that'll take you directly to the Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness page. So it'll have some information here, some more information about eligibility requirements, the grant process, our timeline. Here we'll have the user guide and FAQs. This is hopefully an incredibly helpful document for you all. It outlines the RFPs and talks through some of the frequently asked questions that we get. Also, we note our community advisory board and our funding partners. So in order to apply, you'll just hit this apply now button. And this will take you to the apply page of the founded grant making portal. I want to note this gets a little confusing because we do have other processes open right now. We have a program called Claim Your Money PHL, which is, I also encourage your organizations to apply. That is really going towards organizations that are doing outreach with communities around accessing the child tax credit and the earned income tax credit. And this is through a partnership with the Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity at the city. So, please take a look at that if you are doing that kind of work and apply to that as well. But that is not for the community fund dollars. So just want to note, but that will be on top. And then you'll see two applications here at the Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness cycle for current grantees up at the top. And then you'll see Community Fund for Immigrant Wellness cycle for new applicants. Daisy, I see your hand up.
Yeah, just real quick, in the grant that you were just referring to, is that also available for funding in Delaware County or just Philadelphia?
It is, I believe it's just Philadelphia. Yeah, it's just Philadelphia.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. All right. So I just also want to bring you to the login page. So for those of you who have applied in the past or are current grantees or have maybe been past grantees, you will have an existing login for our Founded Grant Portal. If you have trouble accessing that, again, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to reset a password, all of that good stuff, that logistical stuff that, I don't want that to get in the way. So if you are truly a new applicant, you can click here and say create new account, and that'll take you to a page where you'll fill out some information about yourself and about your organization. And then you'll have, an organization page through our Founded portal. So I'm going to just log on here and I'm going to change my status to applicants. You can get a sense of what this looks like. So once you log in, you'll see your applicant dashboard here. And if you're just logging into the page and it takes you to your applicant dashboard, you want to access the application, you'll go back to that apply page, go down. So say you're a new applicant, you'll click apply here in this blue box on the right-hand side, and that will take you directly to the application. So you'll see here, you'll fill out some information about your organization to really understand if you meet the eligibility requirements, some information about the community that you're working with, and then it'll go through the grant request. And there is a little more information to each of the questions to kind of guide sort of what we're really asking for. And then, finally, you'll answer about this capacity building question and additional information. I just want to note that you can save your application and come back to it if you so choose, and to make sure that you submit your application using the blue button right in the bottom right corner there. So, I hope that's relatively straightforward. And if you have any trouble with the tech, I'm happy to chat through it. So that is all I have for today. I feel like I just talked this whole time. So yeah, I'll take questions. And I see, Karen, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you so much for the information. I just want to know if also this recording will be available for us to review later so that, we can check again the whole process.
Absolutely. I will send out the slides and this recording to the full group, and I will post it on the webpage for the community fund. Yeah, thank you, of course.
Yes, and thank you. And for the application, we can save and come back as many times as we want,
Yes.
without losing information or applying for it.
Yeah, just make sure you hit the save button. But yes, you can save it as many times as you need.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. Well, if there isn't anything else, I would love to give everybody 20 minutes back in their day. So yeah, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm really looking forward to seeing your applications and toward another cycle of the community fund. So thank you all so much and have a really nice afternoon. Enjoy the weather.
Thank you all. Get out and enjoy that weather.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.